Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Bree. Today's video is going to be all the books I read in the month of March. I had a really great reading month. I found a new favorite series, which you should see a reading vlog about that before this comes out. So I just have a lot of exciting things to talk to you about. So I think that I'm just going to get right into it, just pull them off the stack and talk to you about them. And if you've read any of these, I'd love to know your thoughts on them down below. I feel like I have quite a few backlists and new lists, so I have a good mixture. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But without further ado, let's get into my thoughts. So let's just get into the best books of the month. I just am so excited to talk about these, so I think I'm just gonna get out of the way and talk about it first. And that's Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold. I loved the rest of the series. I read City of Brass in January and enjoyed it, gave it about 4 stars, but these are 5-star favorites, and the series as a whole is definitely a favorite series. The strengths in this series are the character work and the slow world building, like the way you're just transported to this. It's an Egyptian kind of adjacent story. So it starts in Egypt in I want to say the 1800s, around then, and then it is transported to a magical world. So it's one of those where there's a world of magic existing next to our own, and we are following a bunch of characters, but mainly our main girl Nari, as she is thrust into this magic world that she previously knew nothing about and has to grapple with a lot of things that are happening politically in this world. And I just love them. I love the way that you slowly get to know every character and have multiple sides to them, the way that they have to struggle through their own beliefs and really decide how they want to be in the world and what impact they want to have on the world. And yeah, you just see so many character journeys that I think were so well done and great to read. So Kingdom of Copper is the second, and this one I gave 5 stars. I think that it had a slow build up to a very climactic ending, one that just made me have to read. And then I think that this is probably the best conclusion to a series I've ever read. I haven't read a ton of full series in my adulthood, especially fantasy series. A lot of times I read mystery series that are long spanning, but this kind of full story wrapped up. This is in my adulthood one of the first I've completed, and it's, I think, the best conclusion to a series I've ever read. So I loved it. I would recommend it to anyone, especially if you liked the other books in the series. I think this one just ended just so well. It is long, but it didn't feel that way to me. I think I read this over a span of 4 days because I just could not stop and couldn't put it down. So I highly recommend it, and I love them so much. So that's in a reading vlog where I read that. And then I read The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is the start of a spin-off series that was the spin-off of The Darker Shade of Magic. So this is taking place years after the fact of that book. And so we're following similar characters, and then we're adding new characters. And overall, I would give this about a 4-star. I think that it was so well done in terms of characters. They still feel like they're characters, but adding new things that they have to grapple with. And then adding the new characters, there was a really good balance between adding new and having old. But the thing that kept me from really falling in love with it was the time jumps, because we're getting multiple perspectives and then multiple time jumps. That was my only complaint, is that I wish the timelines were a little more linear, or I guess a little less confusing. Granted, I was listening on audiobooks, so that could make an impact, but overall I really enjoyed it and very happy I got to it, because I think that it was a really good continuation of a series, which I also haven't read very much of. It did it really well. It just expanded upon it in a way that I really enjoyed. Then we have a different direction, and I had read Kingdom of Copper and this, and I was just needing a break, and so I went for something cozy. And so I read A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey, which I've been wanting to read for a while now and haven't got to. This is a cozy historical mystery series. It's long spanning. I think there's 11 books out, and we're following Lady Hardcastle and her maid Armstrong, and they are in a quaint little village. They just moved there. They used to be spies, and they're like, we're done with that life. And so they are trying to settle down when they stumble upon a dead body. And they kind of help the police, because the police are like, oh yeah, it just looks like he unalived himself. And they're like, maybe not, because how would he get himself up there? And do you see these footprints? And so they just kind of help the police to realize that maybe it is a murder. And so then from there on, they help investigate. And one thing I really liked about this was that we actually see them work with the police in a way that like they actually work together. And I think that in a lot of the books you see like the sleuthing behind the police's back, and I like that a lot. But in this, I just really enjoyed the relationship they had with like the constable character, I want to say he was. And I think that he's going to be a fun character throughout the series that they can work with, because this is set in 1908 and he like is not shocked by much that they know, and he just like is very willing to listen to them and take on their theories and stuff. So I really liked it. So I really like Flo or Armstrong. Her name's Florence Armstrong, but they call her Flo or Armstrong. And Lady Hardcastle's like dynamic. They have a lot of banter and witty back and forth and jokes between each other, and that's something that I find really endearing in stories. It's something I really, really love, is a fun like banter between characters. So that has this in here. Really loved it, and I will continue on. I already want to read the next book. They're very hard to come by though. My library only has a Dutch version, so I'm gonna have to purchase myself a copy of the second one so I can read it. And I think overall I would give this like a 4-star, 3.5 to 4-star. Like it's a cozy mystery, so I didn't expect like the world of the mystery, but I just had a really good time while reading it and being with the characters. So the next book I read was part of my anticipated releases reading vlog that you will see, and I will link, and that is Fae Bound by Sarah Al-Arifi. This is the same author who wrote The Final Strife. I never read that one, so this was my first try into her books. And this is like a fantasy romance, and we've got elves as like the main characters, and then there's some fae and humans in this world. And we're basically having elves are in like a forever war, and our main character, Urine, she gets exiled after something happens, and then her sister and her Urine's captain go to find her, and they all meet up, and there's this plot with the Fae, and there's some romance between multiple, like both sisters get a romance, so there's that as well. Overall, I think I gave it a 3-star in the video, but I really, upon reflection, feel like it is kind of a 2.5 for me. I did enjoy parts of it, but overall I feel like it was lacking for me in terms of character and their like relationships. I didn't believe a lot of the relationships that go on in here, just because I feel like we didn't get enough time spent building the relationships. And then also the plot itself, like why the elves are in this forever war and like the world building side of things, I think was lacking for me. And then overall in the plot, there were interesting parts to it, but at the end, I just really didn't care, and I don't see myself moving on with the series. So it was just a bit of a different disappointment, because I really wanted to like this, and I had all the hopes of it, but in the end, I think that there was just choices that I didn't connect with. I'm just a little disappointed about it. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about Fae Bound. You can see more in-depth thoughts in the reading vlog. Then I have a book that I just tried out. I don't think it was in a reading vlog, but I was in the mood for historical mystery, and so I continued on with Veronica's Speedwell series because I really want to see if I can like it even more. So this is a third book. It's called A Treacherous Curse. The first one is called A Curious Beginning, and my enjoyment of the series has gone up as I've continued reading, and that's been the same with this. So I think I gave the first book 3.5 stars. The second book I would give 4 stars, and I would give this one 4 stars as well. The mysteries don't really matter, I feel like, in the long run. This one was interesting. It was following an Egyptian exhibit, and something has gone missing, and so Stoker and Veronica are like trying to find this missing object and figure out what happened. There was also someone who is in Stoker's past who was part of it, and he is also missing, and so it's believed that he stole that artifact, but they are trying to figure out if he's really dead or if he did steal it and what's going on. And so from the mystery side, I think that the mysteries are like the weakest point, but I really like Veronica and Stoker now. They're growing on me, and I really enjoyed, like, again, getting more into Stoker's backstory. We kind of know Veronica's backstory from the first book. Like, there's something that goes on with her, so I feel like these next two have been really exploring Stoker, and I feel like he's a very interesting character. I really liked it. I think that I can see the slow burn romance, and that is, like, really for me. The way that they are slowly realizing their feelings for each other is so great, and I've heard the next book, Dangerous Collaboration, is like the best one in terms of the romance. So I'm very excited to get to it very soon. So this one I give 4 stars. I had a great time with it, and it's just a fun historical mystery for me. So it is growing on me, and I'm happy to report that it is, because I like being part of the club. Then I have another book in the new releases vlog, and that is Murder Road by Simone St. James. This was probably my most anticipated book of the year. Well, in terms of like mystery thrillers, Simone St. James just really worked for me. I've given all of her new books 5 stars, and then her historical ones that were like her older releases, I've only read one and I've given it 4 stars. Unfortunately, this didn't work for me. I'm going with a 2.5 on this. So I'm definitely the outlier because this has gotten really good reviews on the internet, on Goodreads and stuff like that. And so I think it's just a me thing. It just didn't work. The thing I love about Simone St. James is her atmosphere and her like spookiness to her stories and the way it kind of feels horror. And this read much more like a thriller to me, like a action-packed like serial killer thriller. And there is still the paranormal aspects that she always brings into her books, but it just didn't have the same feeling to me, and I didn't really care about the characters. And overall, I think I like dual timeline, and this is not a dual timeline. So if you like her for the dual timeline, you're not getting that in here. So yeah, it's disappointing. You can see more of my thoughts on the video, but overall, I think a 2.5 from me. So the next one, the last one in that anticipated reading vlog was What Fae Night by T.K. Fisher. This is a second in a horror like duology. Well, I don't know if there's going to be more, but a horror like novella series. First one is What Moves the Dead, and this one we're following our same main character, Easton, and we are in another city at a home they used to go to, and some weird stuff's happening at the home, and so they're trying to figure it out. It's got the same atmosphere as What Moves the Dead. Overall, I would give this 4 stars. I really like where it went and expanded from the first one. I don't think it was as good to me as the first one. I still think for like a horror continuation, and the first one is a retelling, and this is no longer a retelling, so it's just expanding the world and the story, and I really appreciate that about it. And I liked getting more backstory, and I like our main character Easton, and just hearing more about their backstory I really liked. And I like why can't I remember the person who is with them? Angus. I really enjoy Angus as well, and like Easton and Angus's dynamic. So overall, I really liked it. I would recommend it. So I think I would give this one a 4. Really enjoyed it. I think it was good for what it was. Then we have another anticipated release, but it wasn't a part of that video, and that's Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice by Elle Cosmano. This is the 4th and final book in the world of Finlay Donovan. My words are I'm losing them. And this wraps up like the 4-book arc. So I think that if you were someone who was worried about if the main plot that's been throughout the books is wrapped up, I do think this answers all the things it needed to and wraps it up in a really good way. So overall, I think I'm going to go with a 4-star for this. I really had a good time. I think it had the fun elements with Finlay and Vero that I've missed. I do think this one was a little more chaotic with the family and the kids. So if that was something that stressed you out, I think this one adds more stress to that situation. But I really liked seeing Vero's like storyline come to fruition. There's like a storyline with her and another guy that I think really I liked how it went, and I just had a lot of fun, and I think it wraps up stuff. And the way the cliffhanger, it definitely is, she's scheduled to have more books. It leaves off on like another body being found, but it's not related to like the first mystery, so it's just going to be like I think another arc, which I think is fun. So I really enjoyed it because I think I enjoyed the first 2. The third one was a little disappointing, but this one I think really brought it back to what I loved about the series. So overall, I'm happy I read it, and it's a good fun mystery series that just makes me laugh and have a good time, and I really needed that in the month because I feel like I was reading a lot of fantasy and like darker things, and this was just like a little bit of sunshine to that, and chaos, I guess. So overall, 4 stars as well. I gave a lot of 4 stars this month. And then we finally have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amar El-Motar. This I read literally in one sitting on the plane. So I had a funeral that I had to go to for a family member, and it was in Florida, so we had to fly. And during that flight, I could not put this down. I just read it so fast. Now, it's a love story across time. So we have 2 like wars that are going on between like people who have people who like weave threads of time and like go back in time and change something and it affects the present. So we have two of these rival people and they start falling in love and sending letters to each other through time. And it's not traditional letters, like it's really interesting how the letters are. But my point is it reads really fast. And I really love this. I'm going to go with a 4.5. It wasn't a full 5 because I think that there are things in the sci-fi world of it that I didn't fully understand, and I think upon reread it would be a 5 because I would like fully grasp what was happening, but there were parts where I was a little confused. But the love story part of it was so beautiful. Like, people aren't lying when they say that there's just beautiful lines in here, and I want to find the one. I think this is one that people read a lot, but it is like one of the best lines. It says, I love you, I love you, I love you. I'll write it in waves, in skies, in my heart. You'll never see, but you will know. I'll be all the poets, I'll kill them all and take each one's place in turn. And every time love's written in all the strands, it will be you. Like, oh my goodness. This is, it's such a good book if you want like a sci-fi, like romance. It's not like a traditional romance either. Like, I wouldn't say there's like as much of like a romance like arc that is usually there because it's like in letters and stuff, but it's so good. And I really enjoyed the time travel elements of it too, and like seeing them manipulate time. It was a little confusing at the beginning, and like I said, with some of the sci-fi stuff, it went over my head a little bit, which is why it's a 4.5, but I can see myself rereading this and for sure giving it a 5. This was so good. So good. I'm definitely on the hype train for this too. If you have seen people recommending it, like I definitely am going to be alongside them because it's so good. I really want them to write another book together because they were a really good duo. They've both written like their own things outside of that, but they know how to write together. They each wrote, like, I was reading the back and they each wrote a character, so I think that was really cool. So there you go. There's all the books I read in the month of March. It was a good reading month. I gave a lot of, I gave a couple low stars, but I gave a lot of high stars and like really high stars. So overall, great reading month. So happy that I have a new favorite series and new favorite books to add to my list. Happy spring if you're in an area that is spring. Otherwise, happy fall would it be for other people? Whatever season you're in, happy season. And thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.